Emma was always running. At 28, she had built her life round deadlines and meetings. As a lawyer in London, she worked 14-hour days and rarely saw sunlight. Her small flat was filled with law books and takeaway containers. She had no time for friends or family. The alarm clock screamed at 5:30 in the morning. Emma's eyes opened instantly. She had trained herself to wake up without snoozing. Every minute counted in her world. She jumped out of bed and rushed to the bathroom. Her reflection in the mirror showed dark circles under her eyes and pale skin. She had not taken a real break in months. Emma grabbed a piece of toast and ate it while checking emails on her phone. 17 new messages had arrived overnight. Her boss wanted updates on 3 different cases. A client was angry about delays. Another lawyer needed documents by noon. Emma felt her stomach tighten with stress. She threw on her black business suit and grabbed her heavy briefcase. The case was filled with papers for today's presentation. She had worked on it for 6 weeks. Every detail had to be perfect. The senior partners would be watching. This presentation could make her a partner at the firm. It was everything she had worked for. Emma rushed down the stairs of her apartment building. The morning air was cold and grey. London looked tired, just like she felt. She had lived in this city for 5 years, but she had never really seen it. She was always rushing from her flat to the office to court and back again. On this cold Tuesday morning, Emma rushed through the train station. Her heels clicked loudly on the concrete floor. The sound echoed in the busy station. People pushed past her, everyone in their own hurry. She carried her heavy briefcase and checked her phone constantly. Today was the biggest day of her career. The partners at her law firm would decide if she got promoted. Everything depended on her presentation at 9 o'clock. Emma's phone rang. It was her sister Lucy calling from their hometown. Emma pressed decline without thinking. She did not have time for family calls today. Lucy had been trying to reach her for weeks, but Emma was always too busy. She felt a small pain in her chest but pushed the feeling away. Work came first. It always came first. The station was crowded with morning commuters. Everyone looked tired and stressed. Emma realized she was just like them, running through life without really living. But she pushed that thought away too. Success required sacrifice. That was what she told herself every morning. Platform 3. The 6:47 train to central London. She whispered to herself. Running faster, she could see the red train in the distance. The doors were still open. She was going to make it. Her heart pounded as she ran. The briefcase felt heavier with each step. Emma thought about her presentation as she ran. She had practiced it 50 times in her mirror. She knew every slide, every word, every pause. The case was about helping a big company avoid paying taxes. Emma had found legal ways to save them millions of pounds. The partners would be impressed. They had to be. But then she heard the whistle blow. The doors closed with a loud thud. Emma reached the platform. Just as the train pulled away, she stood there, breathing heavily, watching her future disappear down the tracks. The red train became smaller and smaller until it was gone. No, 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 she shouted, but the train was gone. Other passengers shook their heads and walked away. They would catch the next train. For them, it was just a small delay. For Emma, it felt like the end of the world. She stood alone on the platform, holding her briefcase like a shield. A railway worker walked over to her. He was an older man with kind eyes. Sorry, love, the next train won't come for 2 hours. We have mechanical problems today, signal failures. Down the line. Nothing we can do about it. Emma felt her world crashing down. She had never missed an important meeting in her life. Her perfect record was broken. Her phone buzzed with angry messages from her boss. Where are you? One message said, the meeting starts in an hour. Another message said, this better be good. Emma, her hands started shaking as she read the messages. She tried to call her boss, but he did not answer. She tried calling the office, but everyone was busy. No one could help her. She was completely alone, for the first time in years. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She had not cried since law school. She had trained herself to be strong, to never show weakness. But standing on that cold platform, watching her dreams disappear, she could not hold back anymore. She sat down on a cold metal bench and put her head in her hands. The metal was freezing against her skin. All her hard work, all those lonely nights at the office, all the sacrifices she had made. And now it might all be for nothing. She felt more alone than ever before. Emma looked round the empty platform. A few pigeons walked round looking for food. The morning sun was trying to break through the grey clouds. For the first time in months, Emma noticed the world round her, but all she could feel was emptiness and fear. As Emma sat crying on the bench, she noticed an old man nearby. He was feeding pigeons from a small paper bag. The birds gathered round his feet, cooing softly and pecking at the breadcrumbs he scattered. He wore a warm brown coat that looked old but well cared for. His grey hair was neat and his kind eyes sparkled behind wire-rimmed glasses. And like Emma, he seemed completely at peace with the world. The old man moved slowly and carefully. Each handful of crumbs was given with gentle attention. He spoke quietly to the pigeons as if they were old friends. There you go, Charlie, he said to a fat grey pigeon. Don't push the others away. There's enough for everyone. Emma watched him through her tears, wondering how anyone could be so calm. The morning was getting busy around them. People rushed past, checking their phones and looking worried. The station announcements echoed overhead, telling passengers about delays and platform changes. Everyone seemed stressed and angry. But this old man sat peacefully, as if he had all the time in the world. Here, dear, the old man said gently, walking over to Emma with a clean white tissue. Bad morning. Emma looked up at him with red, swollen eyes. She felt embarrassed that a stranger had seen her crying. She had always prided herself on being strong and professional, the worst. She said, taking the tissue gratefully, I missed my train, and now my career is probably over. The old man sat down beside her on the cold metal bench. The pigeons followed him, still hoping for more food, and Thomas. He said with a warm smile that reminded Emma of her grandfather, I've been taking this train every morning for 3 years now. You know, sometimes the delays are a blessing in disguise. Emma stared at him in disbelief. How can you say that? She asked. I have the most important meeting of my life today. The partners at my law firm are deciding whether to promote me. I've worked so hard for this moment, and now it's ruined. Thomas reached into his paper bag and scattered more crumbs for the pigeons. I understand disappointment, dear, but let me tell you why I take this train every day. His voice was gentle and patient. I'm going to visit my wife, Mary. She has trouble remembering things now. The doctors call it dementia. She lives in a special home near the city. Emma felt her anger starting to fade as she listened to Thomas. His voice was calm and full of love when he spoke about his wife. Every day, I bring her favorite chocolate cookies. Thomas continued, I sit with her and tell her stories about our life together, about our wedding day, our children, our grandchildren. Sometimes she remembers me and smiles. Sometimes she looks at me like I'm a stranger. But I never miss a day. Emma felt ashamed of her anger and self-pity. Here was a man facing something much harder than a missed meeting, and he was still kind and patient. She realized how small her problems seemed compared to his daily struggle. "How long have you been married?" Emma asked softly. Thomas's eyes lit up. 52 years this December. Mary was the most beautiful girl in our village. I was so nervous. When I asked her to dance at the church fair, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold her hand. He smiled at the memory, then looked at Emma with gentle wisdom. "I learned something important over the years, dear. Life isn't about rushing from one place to another. It's about the moments in between, the conversations on park benches, the kindness we show to strangers, the time we spend with people we love." Emma thought about her own life. When was the last time she had sat and talked to someone without checking her phone? When was the last time she had really listened to another person? She could not remember. A young woman with a crying baby sat down on the bench near them. The baby was about 6 months old and was having a terrible morning. The mother looked tired and stressed. She bounced the baby gently, trying to calm him down. "SHH, little one," she whispered. "Mom's here. We'll be home soon." Emma watched as Thomas gently made funny faces at the crying child. He crossed his eyes and stuck out his tongue. The baby stopped crying for a moment and stared at Thomas with wide, curious eyes. Then Thomas made a silly noise, and the baby giggled. "He likes you," the young mother said with relief. "He's been crying all morning." Without thinking, Emma found herself helping. She played peekaboo with the little one, hiding her face behind her hands and then appearing with a surprised expression. The baby laughed and clapped his tiny hands together. The sound was pure joy. For the first time in months, Emma smiled a real smile, not the fake smile she used in business meetings, but a genuine expression of happiness. She felt something warm brewing in her chest. She had forgotten how good it felt to make someone else happy, especially someone so innocent. The baby's mother thanked them both. "You've made our morning so much better," she said. Emma realized that her morning had gotten better too. As the morning went on, Emma found herself opening up to Thomas. The words came slowly at first, like water from a blocked tap. She had not talked to anyone about her personal life in so long that she had almost forgotten how. Thomas listened, without judging, nodding gently as she spoke. "My life is so empty," Emma said, staring at the pigeons walking round their feet. "I wake up, go to work, come home, and sleep. That's all I do. I live in a tiny flat in the city. It's just me and my law books and old takeaway containers. I don't even have a plant because I'm never home to water it." Thomas smiled sadly. "That sounds very lonely, dear." Emma nodded. "It is, but I thought that was the price of success. I thought if I worked hard enough, if I gave up everything else, I would be happy when I finally made partner at the firm. But I don't feel happy. I just feel tired all the time." She looked at Thomas feeding the pigeons with such gentle care. "How do you do it? How do you stay so positive when your wife doesn't even remember you sometimes?" Thomas was quiet for a moment, because love isn't about what we get back. It's about what we give. Every day I spend with Mary is a gift. Even if she doesn't know who I am, I choose to focus on the moments when she smiles, not the moments when she's confused. Emma felt something shift inside her chest. She had been so focused on what she wanted to achieve that she had forgotten about giving to others. "I have a sister named Lucy," Emma said quietly. "She's been calling me for weeks, but I've been too busy to call back. She lives in our hometown with her children. I haven't seen my niece and nephew in over a year. Lucy sends me photos of them, but I barely. Look at them. I just think about how I don't have time for family visits. Thomas nodded thoughtfully. Tell me about your sister. Emma's face softened as she remembered. Lucy is 3 years younger than me. She was always the fun one when we were kids. She would make up games and stories. She wanted to be a teacher. Just like you. She married her high school boyfriend, James. They have 2 beautiful children. Sophie is 8 and loves to draw. Ben is 5 and wants to be a dinosaur when he grows up. For the first time in months, Emma smiled when talking about her family. Lucy always wanted me to come home for birthdays and holidays, but I always had work to do. I always had an excuse. Thomas had been a teacher for 40 years at the local primary school in a small town outside London. I met thousands of students over the years, he said. I watched them grow up, get married, have children. The ones who seemed most successful weren't always the ones who worked the hardest. They were the ones who remembered what really mattered. Family, friends, helping others. Emma felt a sharp pain in her chest. When was the last time she had helped someone who wasn't paying her? When was the last time she had laughed with a friend? She couldn't remember. All her old friends had stopped calling years ago. She had turned down too many invitations, missed too many birthday parties. I don't even have friends anymore, Emma admitted. My university friends tried to keep in touch, but I was always too busy. Sarah got married 2 years ago. I got the invitation, but I had a big case that weekend. I sent her an expensive gift and thought that was enough. I haven't heard from her since. Thomas listened patiently as Emma continued to open up about her lonely life. She told him about eating dinner alone every night, about working weekends and holidays, about the silence in her flat that sometimes felt so heavy she could barely breathe. My father had heart problems last month, Emma admitted, her voice breaking. Lucy told me about it in a voicemail. She was crying and scared. She said Dad was in the hospital, and they didn't know how serious it was. But I was so busy, preparing for today's meeting, that I never called her back. I told myself I would call after the presentation. Emma started crying again. What kind of daughter am I? My father could have died. And I was worried about PowerPoint slides and profit margins. Lucy called me 5 more times that week. I let every call go to voicemail because I didn't want to be distracted from my work. Thomas put his weathered hand on her shoulder. His touch was gentle and warm, the kind of daughter who can still change. He said firmly, "It's never too late to choose differently. Emma, your family loves you. They're waiting for you to come back to them." Emma looked at her phone. She had 17 missed calls from Lucy over the past month. Each call was an attempt to connect, to share her life, to include Emma in the family. Emma had ignored them all. With shaking hands, Emma pulled out her phone and called Lucy. Her heart pounded as she waited. Her sister answered on the first ring. "Emma, I can't believe you're calling. Is everything okay?" Emma could hear the surprise and worry in Lucy's voice. Her sister probably thought something terrible had happened for Emma to call during work hours. When the delayed train finally arrived, Emma stood at the platform with Thomas. The red train pulled into the station with a loud screech of brakes. Steam rose from under the wheels. And the doors opened with a mechanical hiss. People rushed forward, pushing and shoving to get the best seats. Everyone seemed angry about the delay. They checked their watches and muttered complaints under their breath. Emma held her ticket to London in her trembling hand. The paper felt heavy, like it carried the weight of her entire future. She could still make it to her meeting. Even though she was very late, her boss would be furious. But she might still have a chance to give her presentation. The partners might understand. They might still promote her, but something had changed inside her during those hours on the platform. The thought of returning to her empty office felt wrong. She imagined sitting in the cold conference room. Looking at the stern faces of the senior partners, she thought about her lonely life. Her endless meetings and the takeaway containers that filled her small flat. It all seemed meaningless now. She looked at Thomas, who was getting ready to board the train. He moved slowly, carefully checking his bag to make sure he had Mary's favorite cookies. His face was calm and full of purpose. He knew exactly why he was taking this journey. He was going to sit with his wife, hold her hand, and tell her stories about their life together. Even if she didn't remember him, he would be there for her. Emma envied his certainty. She had thought she knew what she wanted, but now she wasn't sure about anything. The career she had worked so hard for suddenly felt empty. The promotion she had dreamed about seemed like a trap that would keep her isolated from everyone she loved. Thomas, she said suddenly, grabbing his arm. What if I don't get on this train? Thomas stopped and looked at her with his kind, wise eyes. He had seen something change in Emma during their conversation. She was no longer the frantic, desperate woman who had missed her train. She looked confused but also hopeful. That depends. Dear, Thomas said with a gentle smile, what does your heart tell you to do? Emma closed her eyes and listened to her heart. For years, she had ignored that quiet voice inside her. She had made decisions based on money, status, and what other people expected of her. But now, in this moment, she tried to hear what she really wanted. She thought about her father, lying in a hospital bed with heart problems. He was recovering now, but Lucy had said he kept asking about Emma. He wanted to see his older daughter, to know that she was okay. He had been proud when she became a lawyer, but he missed having her in his life. Emma thought about Lucy's children, Sophie and Ben. They barely knew their aunt. Sophie drew pictures for Emma and sent them in the mail, but Emma barely looked at them before throwing them away. Ben asked Lucy why, and Emma never came to visit. Lucy made excuses. But Emma could hear the sadness in her sister's voice during their phone call. She thought about all the people she could help with her legal skills. Not just rich companies trying to avoid taxes, but real families who needed assistance. People who couldn't afford expensive lawyers. People who were being treated unfairly by landlords or employers. She could use her education to make a real difference in people's lives. I think I need to go home, Emma said. The words felt strange. In her mouth, she hadn't called her hometown home in years. She had always thought of London as her home, but it had never felt warm or welcoming. Thomas nodded approvingly. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is change direction. Instead of boarding the London train, Emma walked to the ticket counter on shaking legs. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The ticket clerk was a middle-aged woman with tired eyes. Where to? Love, the woman asked. Emma took a deep breath. Little Bamford, please. One way. With trembling hands, she bought a ticket to her hometown. 3 hours in the opposite direction from London. The ticket cost more than she expected, but money didn't seem important anymore. She was spending her last pounds in London on a journey home. Then Emma pulled out her phone and called her boss. Mr. Peterson answered on the third ring. She could hear the anger in his voice before she even spoke. Emma, where the hell are you? The partners are furious. You've ruined everything. Emma took another deep breath. Mr. Peterson, I won't be at the meeting today. I resigned from my position. I'm sorry. But I need to make some changes in my life. The silence on the other end of the phone lasted for 10 seconds. Then Mr. Peterson exploded. Are you insane? Do you know what you're throwing away? You'll never work in London again. But Emma felt strangely calm, for the first time in years. She was making a choice based on what felt right, not what looked good on paper. "I understand," she said quietly. "Goodbye, Mr. Peterson." Thomas gave her a small notebook before they parted ways. It had a blue cover and blank white pages inside. 6 months later, Emma's life looked completely different. She woke up each morning in her childhood bedroom in her father's house. Sunlight came through the yellow curtains her mother had hung 20 years ago, instead of the grey concrete walls she had stared at in London. Emma could see the apple tree in the back garden where she used to climb as a child. She had opened a small legal office on the main street of Little Bramford. The office was in an old building between the baker's shop and the flower store. The rent was cheap, and Emma had painted the walls herself in warm cream colors. She had two wooden desks, some filing cabinets, and a small waiting area with comfortable chairs. Emma helped families with everyday problems that big London law firms would never touch. Mrs. Patterson came to her when her landlord tried to throw her out of her flat illegally. Emma helped her understand her rights and wrote letters that made the landlord back down. The Johnson family needed help when their teenage son got in trouble with the police. Emma guided them through the legal process and helped the boy get community service instead of jail time. She helped small business owners understand contracts and tax laws. She wrote wills for elderly people who wanted to make sure their children were taken care of. She helped divorced parents work out custody arrangements that were fair for everyone. The work was not glamorous, but it was meaningful. Emma earned much less money than she had in London. She could not afford expensive restaurants or designer clothes anymore, but she went to sleep each night feeling proud of her work. She had helped real people solve real problems. She had made a difference in her community. Her relationship with her family had healed completely. Every Sunday, Emma had dinner with Lucy's family. They gathered round the old oak table in Lucy's kitchen, the same table where they had eaten as children. Lucy cooked roast beef and Yorkshire pudding, just like their mother used to make. Emma helped with the washing up, and they talked for hours about everything and nothing. Her father was doing much better after his heart problems. The doctors said his recovery was excellent. Emma made sure to visit him twice a week. They would sit in his garden and talk about his flowers, her work, and old family memories. Sometimes they just sat in comfortable silence, enjoying each other's company. Emma's 8-year-old nephew Jack and 6-year-old niece Rose had become the lights of her life. Jack was obsessed with dinosaurs and could tell Emma facts about creatures she had never heard of. Rose loved to paint and always had colorful stains on her fingers. Emma took them to the park, helped with their homework, and read them bedtime stories when she stayed for a dinner. Every few weeks, Emma took the train back to London to visit Thomas at the station. She always brought a bag of breadcrumbs for the pigeons. The birds seemed to remember her and would gather round her feet just like they did with Thomas. She enjoyed these quiet moments of feeding the birds and watching the busy commuters rush past Tom. His wife Mary had good days and bad days. On good days, she remembered Thomas and smiled when he told her stories about their past. On bad days, she looked at him with confused, frightened eyes. But Thomas never stopped visiting her with patience and love. Emmy admired his devotion and learned from his example. "You look different," Thomas told Emma during one of her visits. "You look peaceful." Emma smiled. She felt lighter, like a heavy weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "I am peaceful," she said. "I never thanked you properly for that day. You changed my life by showing me kindness when I needed it most." Thomas waved away her thanks. "You changed your own life. Dear, I just helped you see that you had a choice." Emma had also started a support group in her town for people who felt Overwhelmed by work and life, they met every Tuesday evening in the community center. People came from all walks of life: teachers, shop owners, factory workers, and office clerks. They all shared the same feeling of being trapped in lives that didn't make them happy. Emma shared her story about missing the train that led her to find her true path. She talked about the importance of slowing down and connecting with family and friends. She encouraged people to think about what really mattered to them, not what society expected them to want. Many people found hope in her words. A nurse named Sarah decided to switch from the busy hospital to a small family practice. A businessman named Robert started spending more time with his teenage children instead of working late every night. An accountant named Jennifer began volunteering at the local animal shelter on weekends. One cold morning in December, Emma was waiting for the train at the station in her hometown. She was going to London to visit Thomas and do some Christmas shopping. As she sat on the wooden bench, she noticed a young man nearby who looked upset. He was about 25 years old with dark hair and worried eyes. He kept checking his phone and looking down the empty train tracks. Emma recognized the signs immediately. The young man had missed his train and was panicking about being late for something important. The end.